Peymon who?
Matahede.
Peymon Latahede. Who is he?
Never paid taxes for 30 years. Fought the U.S. tax court and won.
I haven't paid income tax in over 30 years, and you don't have to either. Hello, my friends. I am Peymon Motahede, the president of Freedom Law School, which I created in 1996. In this presentation, I will cover the topic of who is required to file income tax in more detail. What I mean by that is this, okay? We all know that the 1040 U.S. individual income tax form applies to U.S. individuals. However, we covered that before, that when you look at the law from Title 26, Internal Revenue Code, like the book right here having me, this is the federal tax laws, the Internal Revenue Code, the Bible of the IRS that they're supposed to enforce. When you look at this online version, where they hide the definitions at the very back for you not to see, here on the Chapter 79 definitions, they define many terms that do not need defining, and the term state and United States, when you look on in this, only apply to the District of Columbia. The only thing mentioned here is not any of the 50 states, but only the District of Columbia. All there is in the United States, and state listed is only District of Columbia as well, which is not even a state. But all the 50 states, people assume that they're there, but they're not there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you many examples in tax laws and other federal laws where they have all these different definitions. You cannot assume anything. Okay, so here we go, folks. You all seen Section 7701 again right here. I'm showing it to you again. These definitions only include District of Columbia. Nothing else is in there. Now contrast that with, by the way, look at this. Trade or business, Title 26. Also, Section 7701 says that trade or business includes the performance of the functions of a public office. What a ridiculous thing. How can a government agent, a judge, congressman, FBI agent be in a trade or business? That's for making money. That's for making profits. How can a government official be involved in a trade or business? It's absolute, utter nonsense to you and me. Because public servants are in a non-profit function of doing the work for all of us to protect our rights and our freedoms. How can it be a profit-making business for them? But you see, they can define terms any way they want in laws. And you better know that. They told you. You just didn't look. You just assumed it is what the average person thinks it is, but it's not. So here, you're doing your work now and looking at the law for yourself. So let's look at another law. Look at this. If you're in oil taxes, okay, from Title 26 Internal Revenue Code, here's Section 4,612, tax on petroleum, on oil. So here you have subchapter A, tax on petroleum, and you see these unique definitions for this subchapter only, right? Subchapter A, tax on petroleum. And they define many things like crude oil that do not need defining, but they also define the term United States. And look at this definition, okay? Means the 50 states spelled out. Yes, they spelled out not only the 50 states and the District of Columbia, but they mention all of these U.S. territories and property of the federal government, including the continental shelf areas and even foreign trade zones. How you like that for being specific and detailed, right? So which definition we're going to go by? Well, the one that's there. You cannot assume all of these territories and 50 states are included in definition of 7701, because they're not listed there in the United States. Because it's not there, it's not there. So let's look at more different sections of the law. Check this one out. This is Chapter 21, Federal Insurance Contributions Act. The good old FICA that they take out your paycheck, the Social Security tax, so to speak. This is this. Look at this, how it has its own unique definitions, okay? So here for FICA, it all hinges on wages definitions for the purposes of this chapter. What chapter? Chapter 21, Federal Insurance Contributions Act, right? The term wages means all remuneration for employment. You say, oh, okay, employment. Well, I'm an employee. It applies to me, right? Many of you are employees. You think that's your wages? Well, it depends on United States definition. Well, I'll show you. Look at employment, has its own unique definition. Okay? So here we go down in 3121, further down, way down, folks. We're going to go down on this thing. Look, employment for the purposes of this chapter again, Chapter 21 FICA. All this, you can come back, screenshot this, depends on the term United States. Here's something within the United States, okay? Or here's the next one, is something entered into within the United States. Okay? Here is something after the aircraft touches a port in the United States again. Well, there's that term, okay? And then with such vessel or aircraft when outside the United States. Oh, how about that? And how about the outside of the United States by citizen or resident of the United States? Everything hinges on the term United States. Of course, we're not talking about anything about, anything with Social Security Act. It doesn't have anything to do with this. So it's all United States. This whole thing, employment, depends on you doing certain activities which are all connected to the United States. What is the United States they're referring to in Social Security FICA taxes? Here comes the shocker, okay? Let's go down and look at 3121 in E, state, United States, and citizen. For the purposes of this chapter, FICA again, the term states includes the District of Columbia, the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico, and the American Samoa. That's funny. None of these are U.S. states. Okay? These are U.S. territories. They don't mention any of the 50 states, New York, Texas, Florida, but they mention all these tiny, puny little, out of nowhere, U.S. territories as being state, which is ridiculous, right? And look at the United States. The term United States, when used in a geographical sense, includes the missing besides the 50 states here. Not only the 50 states are not included in the United States definition, but neither is District of Columbia, the headquarters. The seat of the United States government is not included in definition of the term United States. Is that accident? Should we put DC in definition of United States, even though Congress didn't put it in there? We cannot do that. We were not allowed. They knew what they were doing, folks. They deliberately chose District of Columbia out of definition of United States. Therefore, all of these activities you see about United States related applies only to these 4 island U.S. territories: Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, Guam, and American Samoa. Not any of the people of the 50 states. You were hoodwinked to pay that Social Security tax, or worse, steal it from your employee's paycheck, send it to its really Satan IRS. So let's go a little farther to look at more enlightening definitions. Here is, again in Title 26, Internal Revenue Code, Section 993, definition and special rules, okay, for domestic international sales corporations. Okay, whatever, right? Who cares? Well, here again, they say for the purposes of this part, right? They got very unique definitions here. We go down to the very bottom of this, Section 993, and the United States has a very peculiar definition. It only includes the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico and the possessions of the United States. Again, not only none of the 50 states are included, neither is the District of Columbia, because D.C. is not a possession of U.S. government. It is the seat. It is the U.S. government. It is U.S. land. See, you got to go by all these definitions exactly as written by the lawmakers. Okay, here's another very important section from the tax laws, 6103, confidentiality and disclosure of returns and return information. So, very important, the law about privacy of people's tax returns. Well, guess what? 6103 has its own definition. Here it is in B. For the purposes of this section, right? This whole section, not the code, just this section, there is some specific definitions included here, which is right here. The term state means the 50 states. Well, look at that. The 50 states. The D.C., all those U.S. territories, and look at a bunch of this other stuff. Oh, but look at all this other stuff they just added in there, right? But it does include the 50 states in the definition of state. They did not forget about it. And include these other territories and lands that are not states at all to begin with. Let's give you another example. This is from another law, okay? This one is from Title 8, Aliens and Nationality, okay? This is Immigration Nationality Laws, Section 1101, definitions as used in this chapter. What chapter? Chapter 21, nationality, right? Who's American, who's not. We go way down and you see in Section 1101, the term state includes the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Virgin Islands of the United States. Interesting. It doesn't mention American Samoa or the 50 states. Very unique definition, right? And then the term United States, look, means what? United States means the continental United States, the 48 states, Alaska, Hawaii, Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Virgin Islands of the United States. Here, guess what? American Samoa is not included in there, but in other laws you saw it was included. And let's do one more. You'll love this one. From Title 28, Judiciary and Judicial Procedure, right? Section 3002. This is going to be a doozy. This one is not even any land involved. That's right. The United States is a whole different animal. Look at this. As used in this chapter, right? In 3002, let's go down further. Look at that in 3002. United States means a federal corporation, an agency, department, commission, board, or other entity of the United States, or an instrumentality of the United States. None of the 50 states are included. D.C. is not included. No U.S. territory, land, or possessions included. Only a federal corporation, agency, and department, essentially. See? So when they use the term United States in tax law, and it's the United States means states and D.C., and state means DC only. That's all there is. Just DC. So therefore, when you see the form 1040 U.S. individual income tax return, this is not a 50 states U.S. individual income tax. This is actually a Washington, D.C. individual income tax return. If you are a citizen or resident of D.C., you must file this form and pay income tax. And the rest of you do not. Folks, it is said, people suffer for lack of knowledge. It is also said, seek the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Congratulations. You've taken some of the first steps to set yourself be free. No longer a slave to the federal government. No longer have to give a part of your heart and money that you need, you and your family badly, give to thieves and criminals in Washington, D.C., who no longer are there to represent you or protect your life and liberty and your pursuit of happiness. Continue going to our website, freedomlawschool.org. Go through these steps, the 7 steps to free yourself of virus deception, fear, robbery, and slavery, and you be a free man once again. Again, where you want to go is freedomlawschool.org, and you'll find your way to freedom right there at our website.